Welcome to the Emajin Golf Podcast Beyond the 19. I'm your host Raj Narayan, and today I chat to Andrew McGregor from Design and Build, which is part of Search For. Andrew shares with us some great insights on how to create an employee value proposition to attract the right talent within your business and really use your recruitment strategy as part of your growth strategy. I hope you enjoy. Andrew, you've been a part of Emajin, for 12 months now, coming up to a year, and it's been great to get to know you, your business, and you even gave us a little talk recently at one of our events. So I've gotten to know a lot about you and Search For. But I thought, look, amazing to have you on the podcast, so thank you for joining us.
Yeah, look, thanks for having me. It's great to spend some time with you today.
Awesome. So look, you shared some amazing insights at the talk, so I'm going to start at the kind of beginning. And as you know, Emajin Golf, we're a community of business owners and executives. And people is one of the biggest challenges people face as they're growing, as they're scaling, as they're delivering, customer value proposition. So tell me a bit more. When you see these businesses, how many are treating this whole recruitment and hiring people as part of their growth strategy, or are they really focused on more of a HR function and looking at growth strategies separate to their people? So what do you find, Andrew, in your experiences?
I see several different lenses on this and perspectives in terms of organisations who treat HR as a completely separate function and almost a function of that's not my problem, that's somebody else's problem. Whereas other businesses, as they start to mature and grow, start to see it as a key part of the strategy. But if you want to, let's rewind this back a bit to your point a moment ago. Every business has people problems, right? I sit within multiple executive groups, and you can have the best system, the best process, the best software, the best everything. But if you don't have the right people in the room, then it's likely going to fail. And so what we're dealing with is nothing necessarily new. It's just getting more and more, in my opinion, complex. And the other part that I also identified early on with not just my own business, but any company, is that when a company's been founded, 99% of the time it's been founded by someone who's a subject matter expert, not in people. Right, so it might be within finance, or they might have a great piece of software, or they might be a great recruiter. But what they're not necessarily is a human resources expert or a strategic person when it comes to people. So naturally, early on in any organisation, you get into a point of how do I do this? I don't know how to deal with people. I got here because of everything but people. I got here because I was so successful at what I did. And so naturally, then the first thing that people do is go, I'll get HR and they'll just sort that issue out for me. And that's sometimes where companies can come undone really quickly.
And also, look, I talk to all these business owners all the time, and the biggest challenge many people face is, and when I did it, it was like this, but then now my team, they can't deliver on this value proposition. Or they always, worried about, they say we have the people, but they're not the right people, or they're just in the wrong spots, or whatever it might be. And as you said before, the big challenge in terms of for any business and delivering something is the people who deliver it, because invariably, like if I take myself, I'm not going to be having every customer conversation. I'm not going to be there onboarding every customer. So you're really trusting a lot of people to deliver what you have in your vision or your product. So tell me a bit more about this hiring. I mean, obviously, it's very important. People are very important. So what are some of the common mistakes you find people making in recruiting?
So I actually had a scenario last week where we met with a client, and they'd got to about 24 to 26 people in their business. And they said it was great getting to this point. You know, I was able to be across all the issues, all the conversations. I was in the know. But now I just feel like I'm super stretched, and the people I've got in my business, I don't think they're the right people to get me to where we want to go next. And I sort of said to them, so as you onboarded them, how much consideration did you give to what you want your business to look like, not only in the next 30 days or the next 300 days, but the next 1,000? And they sort of looked at me, cocked their head and went, well, that wasn't on my mind at the time. And so something that we talk about a lot in our business, and if I was to reflect back in 2014 when we started to set ourselves up for growth, was what do we actually want this to look like in 5 years? Okay, cool. What has to be true for us to achieve that? And then if you think about all the things in your business, all the mechanics, the systems, the processes, the software, the people, the branding, the HR, you've got to start to consider, okay, as you meet these points in your journey of 20 people, 30 people, 40 people, you're not a subject matter expert in finance. So what are you doing to address that issue? Yeah. You're not a subject matter in maybe marketing, so what are you doing to address that? You're not a subject matter expert in people. So it's about not hiring just for what you need in the next 30 days or the next 300 days, but what you actually need in the next 3 years.
Yeah. And talking about that, I mean, you work out what you need for the next 3 years, because obviously, I mean, I take myself as an example. When I first started, I said, I need one person to assist me. So I got Jamie, and he was my assistant, and he was like, not assistant, but he would do all the customer calls, basically all the tasks that we kind of shared. But then over time, as we've grown, he's moved into different roles. He looks after customer now. But every person we've hired when we were smaller are quite different to who we need to lead those functions. And not that they're not good people, they're all great people for who they are, but a lot of them are quite young as well. So as you go and grow, you think, I need management capability, I need different style of individuals to complement the ones we already have. So how do people go about, I mean, what would be your advice? I mean, how do people go about creating this strategy? Because what happens as a small business owner, you're worried about costs, you're worried about your P&L, and you're always recruiting one person. Some might say, I need a salesperson.
Yeah.
I need an events person here in Brisbane. So that's how we're doing this, right? So it's not really strategy as it is more of a tactical, I need a role here as I'm filling it.
Yeah.
And at one point does it go from filling some roles to creating an actual people as your strategy within your company?
Yeah, so I would reflect on our vision. So there's a vision, mission, values that we work towards. The vision is to build trust. Right? That's our vision. So that's what we talk about every day in our business. And the mission and how we're going to achieve that is to do the right thing by our clients, candidates, colleagues and community. So the first thing that I always ask myself when we're trying to grow or hire or attract is this in line with the business? So does this person come in and are they going to actually work within our framework of building trust and doing the right thing? And then you've got to assess, and this is something that we work again hard on, we concentrate on, is what is their capability now, but what's their capacity for growth?
Yeah.
And so then it comes down to your interview process. Like too many of us look at a CV and we almost repeat what the person's done to them and they go, yeah, I've done that. Yeah, I've done that. Well, that's not any good. It's how you did that, you know. And so we implemented an interview process probably 7 years ago now, which is 3 stages. And it's very deliberate on the questions that we're asking to get the information we need around the competency, but also the capability. Like, you know, organisations now, we want to attract people and hire people who are super curious. They want growth, because if they don't want growth, you're going to outgrow them or they're going to outgrow you, right? And that's going to happen. You've got to get super comfortable that if you're going to go from 20 people to 40 to 60 to 80 to 100, as we are now, those who are with you at 20 to 40 might not be with you at 60 to 80. And you've got to be okay with that. And the reality, you mentioned it earlier on in the conversation around today's talent market, well, 3 to 5 years is a pretty decent tenure.
Yeah,
like in a lot of organisations now.
Gone are the days where people are doing their lifetime 20 years and all
you've
that.
got to get rid, and obviously the 20-somethings, you've got to be okay with that. Like that's part of the process. So whilst it might seem scary, like interviewing people every week for the people in your room is just critical. Because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Change comes quick.
So you're almost saying hire the future person they're going to become, or they can become.
Yeah.
And you're hiring for potential as well as the current.
You only ever hire potential. You never know until the person walks in the room whether or not they can do the job that you want them to do, and neither do they. All right, so that's always going to be the case.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes you're going to get it right, and sometimes
because people think they're always hiring people for the job they're going to do now, and they look at all the skills and the psych test. I mean, it's very common, right?
But you don't know until they get in the room.
Yeah.
You just don't know. Like there's just this. Like you look at a CV, you look at past experience, skill sets, you do all of it, and then suddenly they walk in and you're like, this is not working.
Yeah.
And you just don't know until they're in the room. So you've got to be okay with that. And we're always interviewing in our business. Like we'll meet 5 to 10 people per week, just because it's part of the process of growing a company and accepting that turnover is going to happen. Especially when you're pushing. Like if I looked at when we've done big change in the business, we knew we'd lose a third of the business. We knew it'd happen because ultimately they've joined a company who's doing this and that, not a company who's now doing this and that.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That comes from growth.
And I always think it's completely okay to get people who have huge potential and they're there in your company for that 3 to 5 year period than the people who are going to be there forever, but then they have no potential at all.
Yeah,
like you're better off getting like really high caliber people for a small stint in their lives. I always think they attract them for the certain stage in their life, and then they're all going to go out and do some big things in the future.
Yeah, and again, it's industry. Like you've got to think about each industry has a different lens on this. But in recruitment, I interview people and they're like, "Oh, it's great to see so many people in the business for over 5 years." They're not saying 10 years, they're not saying 15 years. They see 5 years as the marker, right? You're like, okay, great.
Yeah.
Whereas in the construction industry, you see a lot of people in the role for 10, 20, 30 years. It really is about the industry you work in. But in a growth company where you're going through your first 10 years, 20 years. It's going to change so much. It really is, because it's going to go from founder-led to actually, you're there now not doing the job that you started the business doing. You've had to go through a process of bringing in that next level leadership. You've had to develop them, help them grow, and that's all going to come with lots of aches and pains and good and bad within it. And it's a mindset from the owner's perspective of just accepting that's the job. That's the role.
So what do you think is poor hiring? I mean, I know people go through all these interviews, and sometimes people have 6 and 7 rounds, and then they get the person, and they're like, "We don't really want this." So something that you think people can pick up on, or that's just a poor hiring practice, or perhaps you can share what your 3 levels are for your 3 rounds of interviews. What does good look like, and what does bad look like?
First thing is never hire on the spot. That's not. You shouldn't do that. I mean, your emotive side of your brain just takes over. You're like, "This person's amazing." And then you go home and go, "Oh, actually, I didn't think about this and that." And it's the same with candidates. So something we implement a long time ago for our candidates, of our clients, was you do a post-interview feedback the day of the interview or soon after, but then you call them back 24 hours later and say, "Right, let's talk about interview yesterday. Now you've had some time to consider it. What are your thoughts?" And all this other stuff comes out.
Oh, wow, okay.
Right,
because they've had time to digest,
So you use a hiring manager. Because you kind of come out of it going, "I got so excited about this person, but actually I didn't follow the process that I need to follow to identify whether or not this person's right." Now, a lot of people I meet on even the Emajin network are like, "Well, I know within 30 seconds." I'm like, but you still need to know. You still need to get into the weeds of it, because they might be right for today and tomorrow, but what about where you want your business to be? And so first and foremost, have a process.
I'm one of those people who's at fault there,
Yeah.
Andrew.
Yeah.
I just see someone, I just hire them, and go, come on in.
Look, look, there's no, again, I say that's one of my perspectives. Everyone has a different lens on this. You're going to get it right 7, 8 times out of 10. Sometimes you're going to get it wrong. But if you get it right 7, 8 times out of 10, you're generally getting right more than most. That's just the reality of it. But to try and do some safeguarding, we have a first interview and we ask ourselves 10 questions. Reflection on those 10 questions, and we score out of 5. Second interview the same, but we don't see each other's scores. We don't see each other's scores, right? And then it comes into that likelihood factor of success. And obviously the longer we've done it, the more critical we've got of it, and the better we've got as a result. Like recruitment, generally it's a 30 to 40% attrition. It's high. So we're now below 20%. So we feel like we're getting it right more than we're getting it wrong. But still, like, we've got issues now in our business, and we're like, how has this happened? Like, they looked great, they sounded great, they came across great, just not working.
Just not working. Because I remember when I used to be in the banking days, it was always like, if you needed 3 salespeople, they just hire 7 and then go with the top 3 would stay. Because sometimes, especially with sales, you never know. They all sound good in the meeting because they're all good at selling something. And in the end, they come back into your organization and there's no numbers, and you go, "Oh, what's going on here?" So
we could do that in our business. We could hire 10 people and accept that 7 aren't going to succeed, or 6 or whatever. But the thing is, our vision is to build trust. And our mission is to do the right thing. So we're not building trust with our colleagues and our clients and our candidates if we're going, "Do you know what, we're going to bring a load of people in and just see what works." Actually, and
that kind of cultures, it's suitable for like the up or out cultures of some banking.
I mean, it works some places, great. And again, but it's what the people in your room will accept. And we've done that before. We launched an associate program, and we've had some great success. Over half of our consultants were associates, but we've had some issues where we've hired 5 and all 5 haven't succeeded. And the feedback we got from the room, who were in the room, was, "Why did you do that? They weren't right. It was clearly they weren't right. Why were you doing that?" So just don't do that. So you've got to think always, when you're onboarding people into a room, think about your room as well. You've already got, because if you create friction and chaos in that room, that's gonna hurt as well.
Exactly. And also what happens is, I mean, certainly not for us, we never do that, but if you got 7 people and then kept only 3, think about the impact on your culture. People are seeing people leave all the time. I always find that when someone leaves, it still impacts everybody who's there.
It also costs you time and money. Right, and ultimately, they're the two things that we try and protect the most. So it's ironic in recruitment, people generally don't want to work with recruiters because it takes time and costs money, but actually it's exactly what we can save.
So Andrew, tell me, so what has been changing in the talent market? I mean, you alluded to this before. You said back in the day, people would like to be, in a company for 10 years and 20 years. What's changing these days? The younger generation, they want to be, moving between things. They can lose interest very fast. Tell me what's going on.
Let's be fair. Every generation complains about the generation afterwards, right?
Yes,
that's just part of the core. It's been changing a lot in this century.
Yeah.
And then we had this thing called COVID.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because today's my son's birthday, and it was the start of what was probably one of the biggest fundamental changes we've ever seen.
Yeah.
From a work perspective, in that we started to work from home.
Yeah.
And everyone had to do it. It wasn't this thing which some companies did, or it was a perk for some people. Everyone did it. And obviously for a period of time after COVID, because the economy was so good, because there's so much free money out there, everyone was trusting everyone with 4-day weeks and 3 days from home and all this stuff. And then obviously as the economy started to suffer and organisations started to suffer, people started to come back into the office. But there was an expectation set that working from home was part of 99% of roles. And if you consider now that in Victoria, specifically, they're going to enshrine 2 days from home in law, that's going to create a huge change again and a big fundamental shift. So one thing that we obviously are very clear on as candidates, still feel like they've got the power to dictate some of the terms.
Yeah.
And not a great deal see working from home anymore as a benefit, which I find quite interesting. The other part that I talked about at a few Emajin events and the one recently was that we previously, job vacancies go up, candidate availability goes down.
Yeah.
Job vacancies go down, candidate availability creeps up a little bit, albeit those good ones don't creep up a great deal, because ultimately when the economy's suffering, people don't move jobs as fluidly. Interestingly now, it's just structural. Like, we've got high vacancy rates coming, candidate rates are staying the same. There was low vacancy rates, candidate availability stayed the same. It's getting harder and harder. We are in a structural deficit of talent, and no one can see how that's going to necessarily change in the next 3 to 5 years. There isn't more talent coming into the market from either locally or overseas, and I talked about that in terms of you're hoping that the UK or US or South Africa or a flood of Irish or European, they're staying the same. It's a steady influx. It's not a huge influx. Don't bank your strategy on more talent in the market. I would be banking my strategy on what have I got in the room now and what am I doing to develop their capability and retain them as much as possible.
I'm a big believer in that as well, of building the capability of the people. Because I always think that you hire the right people and then you teach them everything that they need to know about the job.
So capacity part again, right? So if you hire the right people...
I almost think it's like the intent.
Yeah.
They need to have the potential, they need to have the ability to do it, but they need to have the intent to grow. Like,
so
they don't want to grow, then it's like,
Capability and capacity, right? Do they actually want to grow? Are they curious? And, when I look at my own business's growth, 2017 we appointed a head of people and culture because we identified that we needed a subject matter expert within that. I think we were around 40 people at that point. And then in 2020, we hired a head of people and development. And now we've got two full-time people development in our business, because we saw that, well, let's get this right. Let's get our people and culture right. Let's get our L&D right. Let's get all the frameworks around that. And we'll still get attrition, but you know what? We'll retain the right people.
Yeah.
And then they'll in turn attract the great people as well. And not to say we're perfect, by the way, by any of those.
Yeah. But the reality is, right, as you said, there's a talent shortage.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to hear that you don't see how that it's going to end, because people always think it's possibly because of COVID and there were a lot of restrictions on people coming into Australia. So therefore there was this temporary shortage, and people always I think expected that it would increase once the movement was free. But if it's going to stay at a shortage, how do companies go and find these right people? How do they actually attract the right people?
So there isn't a people shortage. There are plenty of people applying for jobs.
Yeah.
There is a talent shortage. There's not a lot of the people applying, right? So I say this.
Tell me about that.
I say this respectfully, but talented people are very, they're hard to find.
Yeah.
Let's be realistic about this. And talented people are those that you just see they've got the drive, the care, the capability, and the curiosity and the capacity to grow. And so that in itself is the issue. It's not a case of is there not enough people applying for jobs. There's plenty of people applying. But organisations are so stretched now that they don't have the capacity themselves to onboard a person and develop their capability.
Okay.
You know, I've seen some examples of a large tech business 2 years ago. They presented at a LinkedIn event about how they were increasing mobility in their organisation and looking to develop their current team, and then they made 10,000 people redundant the next day.
Oh my God.
And I was like, well, you're not really doing that, are you? So my approach to this is, well, just deal with the reality. The goal is you want to grow your business. The reality is actually that there isn't a great deal of talent out there, or talented people. So what are you doing and what are your options? And so our options were, let's focus more on our L&D. Let's get that right. Let's generate that as a point of difference where we can go to market and talk about not just about your first 12 weeks in our business and a comprehensive onboarding program, but really map out the next 5 years. You know, what will happen in those 5 years? If you do X and Y and Z, A, B and C will come. And it's very clear, it's very concise, and be super deliberate about that. So in building an employee value prop around an employee's journey and how you're going to support that, but then actually having the actual functions in your business to do that is also critical. You can't just say you're going to do it and then they get it and it's not there. So yeah, employee value prop would be a big one that's on my mind.
Yeah, I know you talk about this a lot, the employee value proposition.
Yeah.
I'd only ever heard about the customer value proposition.
Yeah.
I worked in sales all my life, so I've only heard about the customer value proposition. So tell us a bit more about the employee value proposition. What is it, and what should businesses do to create one for themselves?
So was it Richard Branson who said treat your staff as your customers, and then in turn
they will treat the customers very well.
That was said 15, 20 years ago, probably longer, I can't remember when it was. And so that in itself was what came to my mind, is that originally Design and Build, part of Search 4, the mission was do the right thing by client and candidate. That was okay, cool, great. But in recruitment there's a third C, which is the consultant or the colleague. And so we started to ask ourselves, well, what are we doing to support them? You know, for them to do the great work that we want them to do with our clients and candidates. And so we looked at obviously the onboarding. You know, what does that actually look like? Okay, well, we need to think about that process. Then we looked at post onboarding. What is the L&D journey that they're going to go on? So we started to address that. Then we looked at, okay, what does it take for them to be promoted? And we started to consider that it was very vague. And so what are we going to do to support that? Then obviously, how do we retain them? How do we keep them engaged? How do we reward them? And that all becomes part of the employee value proposition, because an employee value prop is the first part of the hiring process. If you don't have that done and set out, don't go to market. Have that done and ready first, because what the right people will ask in an interview is, can you articulate to me what the first 30 days is going to look like in this role, what the next 90 days are in this role, and what might the first year be, and what you want from me. And if you've got a great employee value proposition, you'll be able to articulate that really well.
Fantastic. So it's something as a smaller business owner, but also as you grow, you want to create that for yourself. Like, why would someone want to work here? Because that's how you're going to attract the talented people in this talent shortage, isn't it?
And there's
because otherwise you're going to get all the riffraff, the other people you don't want.
But there's two elements to it as well, in that a good employee value proposition will get someone to want to work for you for the right reasons, which is all about what it's like to work at the business, versus money. Because money comes second, right? The offer of employment comes at the end. The money, the transaction, if you want to call it that, which is a bit maybe harsh. But what comes at the start is, what's it like to work here? And get into that, and they're so excited by that, they're so focused on that. It allows you to not be about just a salary alone. Salaries are important. We live in Sydney, we live in Australia. Obviously, you know, there's global companies, etc. But, you know, it's an expensive place to live, so salary comes part of it. But what else you do, does that add to the salary, or does it take it away? And is it just about the salary alone?
And also, I find that most people, like, you know, there's a market value for them. So there will be other people offering that salary. It's almost like, why would they choose us? Like, why would they come here? And why would they stay? They're kind of two things, isn't it?
I'll give you an example. Obviously, I'm working in recruitment. There are many companies who offer, I would say, way better bonus schemes than we do. But I sat down with someone, I said, so you only have to do 3 deals a quarter to earn good money. Like, I was like, so you only have to place 12 people a year. So he said, I was like, that sounds great. But the thing is, we place 36 people a year with your client. So who's going to win more business from that client? You doing 12 deals or us doing 36? So don't build a scheme which is counterintuitive to what you want your business to achieve, which is more sales. And so again, salary, yeah, it's important, and paying the right money is important, but actually adding value and bringing value to your clients, your candidates, and your colleagues far outweighs the salary alone.
Yeah, so interesting. So tell me, from all of your experiences and so forth, what do high performing companies do well, or what differentiates between high performing and the others in this space? Because I know everybody recruits, everybody has multiple rounds of interviews and so forth.
I would say that the ones that I've seen it doing well are ensuring that the right people in their organisation are doing what they're best at and taking away the stuff that they're not best at.
Yeah.
And so what I mean by that is that they're implementing systems where that person's that's their superpower. Get them doing more of that.
Yeah.
Versus that's not something that they're great at. Don't get them doing that. When it comes to a HR and talent perspective, I think they're just super clear on not what they just need in the next 30 days, but what they want to achieve in the next 300 and 1,000 days, and what they need to do that. And then they start to articulate that well to an employee coming in to the role. Just being super clear, like being super intentional, super clear on why you're hiring and what you're hiring for and what you're looking for and what they're going to achieve with you. That will stand you out.
And I got another question about the recruitment process. You said you have 3 kind of processes. What do you think about all these people who do the psych tests and the evaluations and all of these things? Do you think that tells you more about the candidate as opposed to the interview? What do you think? What do you recommend? How many stages should there be in a proper interview process?
My perspectives on this are that we've tried the psychometric route, and I kind of went, well, so hold on a minute. Someone built that originally, and they had their own perspectives on this, right? But what I see is they're almost trying not to hire the person rather than to hire them, because you only have a hiring potential.
Yeah.
Like we've done psych tests and we've onboarded people whose psych test was incredible, and then subsequently it was awful. It didn't work out. And I've seen individuals who we did a psych test on. In fact, we've onboarded 2 people in the last 3 years. We did the psych test 6 years ago. We're like, no, they won't be right for us. And then they came in, they've been brilliant.
Yeah.
Like you just don't know. Like because there's them, there's the people around them, there's the husbands, the wives, the children, the environments, all that stuff comes into how someone comes into the room.
Yeah.
Like all the outside factors that a psych test, and it might have been the psych test there. I mean, I'll give you an example. I had a person interview for a very senior role in Sydney, and they were fantastic. But they flew over from Perth and they had free coffees, and they just couldn't function as a human. They literally had free coffees and said, I don't usually drink this much coffee. Went to the interview and absolutely bombed it. And they were fantastically capable. But because of that decision, so what does a psych test tell you? Like you just don't know. The being of the person that day can completely change.
Yeah, so interesting. I worked, in my early days, I worked in management consulting, and I had this boss, and he always used to say, because in management consulting, they do all these tests and 7 rounds of interview and from the case interviews and things like that. And they also do the test, which is they test your IQ, and they also test your psych.
Yeah.
And he used to always say, if someone rates very high IQ, they can always fudge their psych test because they can put on a profile and answer all questions like that. Yeah. So the psych test is not of value.
Yeah.
But if their IQ was lower, then psych test is of value, but we don't want them because IQ is lower.
But here's the
so
point.
It was like
but the counter argument to that is, if they've got a high IQ, then they're going to come into your room and work stuff out real quick.
Yeah.
They're a problem solver, right?
Yeah.
That's what
right.
IQ generates. And, they look at things in a different perspective. And so, not a lot of organisations actually test intelligence anymore. Well, I'm like, well, you want smart people in the room, don't you?
Exactly.
Like you do want a level of intelligence in the room. And of course you want high EQ, you want people to be emotionally in tune with what's happening. But nothing wrong with hiring smart people as well.
I totally agree.
Right,
I almost, just say hire the smart people. Yeah. Forget about their personality. Yeah. Because I always think that.
But then you would never have hired me because I'm all EQ.
Oh, is that what you're going with?
Yeah.
I don't know. The jury's out on that. Because I used to always say, you can be a complete dick if you wanted to. But you better be backing that up with a lot of great output.
Yeah, true.
Because sometimes I've had managers who are like, on the spectrum, but they were brilliant people that people wanted to follow because you would learn so much, and they were just rainmakers. And
look, the world has again evolved. You talked about earlier in terms of how things have changed. You get your super technical leaders, but they're technical managers. Right? And in organisations, you get your leaders. There's mechanics and dynamics. If you look at things in a business, there's mechanics and dynamics. You've got your managers to manage the mechanics, your leaders to manage the dynamics.
Yeah.
And so that's when the EQ comes into it from a dynamics perspective, but they still need to be relatively smart.
They need to be relatively
Yeah,
small because I
yeah.
always say, for a team to follow you,
Yeah.
and they don't necessarily follow you, but
Yeah.
I always say to be a leader, you need to
Yeah.
have some followers.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can't be leading nothing in a room.
Well, I said last week some content which was leadership only exists if people choose to follow you.
Exactly. Otherwise, you
Yeah.
just have one man walking
Yeah.
around. You know. What I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Exactly. The Pied Piper needs to have some people.
Yeah, maybe not the Pied Piper, that's a bad example.
Yeah,
They go
probably
off a
bad
cliff.
example. Take him off a cliff. That's probably a bad example.
yeah,
But no, totally true. Like you see people like Steve Jobs and things, and people always say you should throw papers and you should be like a bit demanding and eccentric. But people still followed him because they thought he was brilliant.
Yeah.
So there are different types of leaderships. But you're absolutely right. In these days, especially, you need to have that value proposition really right and have the processes in place to find the right talent.
Yeah.
So as a business owner, if I was sitting here and I said, okay, look, listen to this podcast and great to hear all these great strategies and advice from Andrew. But what can I do in the next 90 days?
Yeah.
So if I'm starting today, what can I do in the next 90 days? Any practical tips that I can do to just change this? Because if I'm here and I've got to go over here, I need to take some steps.
Yeah.
What would they be, the first steps?
I mean, employee value proposition was probably where I'd start. And before even that, then is if I was to consider what I would love my business to look like in 3 years' time or in 5 years' time, let me put myself in that world. What does that mean? What is it going to require me to? What do I need in my room to achieve that? And what do I need to do today? And start working back from that. And then an employee value proposition would become part of that.
Yeah.
What I would do in terms of how I'd start that employee value prop is ask my current team.
Yeah.
What is it that you really enjoy about working at this business? What are the things that really stand out to you? What I wouldn't ask you is what the stuff you don't like.
Exactly, never asked that.
No. It's all serious. What are the things that stand out to you about why you work at this business and why you've stayed here? Again, because in employee value proposition, you're going to get them to promote your business and talk about that in your employee value proposition as well.
I love that. That's pretty interesting. Ask the actual employees. That's a good spot to start, isn't it?
Yeah. What was it? Culture Eats Strategy for breakfast was a book.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is strategy is your vision, in my opinion. That's to build trust. So then the culture becomes part of that. But I seriously think you can't get anywhere without the people.
Exactly, and you can't really implement on strategy if you don't have the right culture or the people delivering on the strategy. So that makes absolute sense. And talking a little bit back about what you said, I'm a big believer in not doing surveys.
Yeah.
Because I always say there's nothing wrong with doing a survey, but then you better be ready to address everything that comes up.
Yeah. We used to do stop, start, and continue. The problem was there's nothing ever went into stop.
Yeah.
It's just more start.
Yeah.
I want more of this.
Yeah, I know.
And only the negative stuff would go and stop. So we do engagement surveys, and we twice a year will ask the team from a colleague perspective, what do you think is the one thing that we could work on over the next 12 months? And then the same with clients and candidates, we ask them the same, and then we do engagement surveys. Again, it's an opportunity to give us feedback. It's one of our values, feedback builds trust. So I think there's a right time and place for it. Obviously, subject to your business size, it's a lot easier to do when there's less than 20. When there's 100, you're getting lots of different perspectives, so you take that all on board. But then you deliver the feedback and what's been taken away from it, and then you commit to one or two things. But again, organisationally, try and limit big change to once every 6 months, because big change creates chaos.
And I find that as well. I think, I'm a big believer that the power of any business is all the things that you say no to. Because if you keep on saying yes and you have all these initiatives, if I go ask my 20 staff, what do you all want? And each one tells me something different. And now there are 6 key things that I'm going to do. It's really hard. It's really hard to execute on that. And
I read a great book, Gary Keller, How to Achieve Extraordinary Results by Focusing on One Thing.
Yeah.
And so I do ask myself that consistently, what's the one thing? And we ask the team, what's the one thing? Now, granted, you'll get different answers, but generally they all feed into the same thing. And that's when we sort of work on that one thing, and that's how the vision of building trust came through. It was just build trust.
Build trust, I love that. And the big thing is, once you've made this one thing, you got to walk the talk.
Yeah, and it's infinite, because you never know if you're doing it. You never know if you've done it or not.
Yeah.
What was it? Cynic talked about the infinite game or whatever, and that really resonated with me. It's like Nike, just do it. It's just it's a continuum. It isn't just there's no end to it.
Yeah, there's no end to it. You got to keep on, living it exactly every single day.
Yeah.
So look, it's been amazing chatting to you. There's so many insights in here, and to our listeners, I always say connect with you and have a chat because this is amazing amazing thoughts you've given us and strategies on how to fix the one big thing in your business, which is your people. Because once you fix that, everything gets automatically fixed because they do it all for you.
You hope so.
You don't have to do anything at all.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for. So one day I just walk away and then.
Well, that's why I'm part of Emajin, just more and more golf.
Exactly.
Might have to cut that one out because
exactly. We'll cut that little spiel out so the team doesn't hear it. But the whole purpose, right? And people always say, you need a business that runs without you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, all you've got is a very expensive job.
Yeah.
You've just got a job for yourself that it's not an actual business.
There was a saying which was that, if you're on the golf course and your business is running successfully, you're doing the right thing. So part
Repeat
of Emajin,
Repeat that a few times.
That.
Imagine that. That's where the name came from, Emajin.
Yeah.
Exactly. Imagine that.
Awesome.
So if you want to give some parting thoughts
Yeah.
to our business owners and listeners of this podcast, what would it be? One thing they can take away from this?
Just trust the process. If you've set the right strategy in place around your vision, your mission, your values, your goals, trust the process. It's going to be a process of up and down, left and right, and you'll learn to ride the waves differently as you grow.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much.
No
That was
problem.
amazing.
Awesome.